Abolition. After the establishment of the British and Foreign Anti-Slavery Society in 1839 to fight slave trading in the Mediterranean, Ahmad ibn Mustafa, Bey of Tunis, agreed to outlaw exporting, importing, and selling slaves in 1842, and he made slavery illegal in 1846. In 1848, France outlawed slavery in Algeria. Despite the British outlawing the slave trade in 1833, Turco-Egyptian troops of Muhammad Ali of Egypt continued to export approximately 20,000 slaves annually from Sudan. Merchant princes such as Al-Zubair Rama Mansur, appointed Khedive in 1873, controlled trade in Bahr el Ghazal and the routes to Kordofan and Darfur. In 1929, the Sanusi Center of Kufra in the Sahara was pointed out as a center of the trans-Saharan slave trade. The Italians reported to the Advisory Committee of Experts on Slavery in the 1930s that all former slaves in Italian Tripolitania were free to leave their former Arab owners if they wished, but that they stayed because they were socially depressed. The oases of Cyrenaica and the interior of Sanusia, the trans-Saharan slave trade had been erased in parallel with Italian conquest, during which 900 slaves had been freed in the Kufra slave market. In 1936, the report to the Advisory Committee of Experts on Slavery from the French, British, and Italian stated that they all surveyed the water along the caravan routes in the Sahara to combat the trans-Saharan slave trade from Nigeria to North Africa. In 1938, the French claimed that they had secured control over the border areas alongside Morocco and Algeria and effectively prevented the trans-Saharan slave trade in that area. Slavery was not abolished in Mauritania until 1981. In the 1980s, during the Second Sudanese Civil War, there was a resurgence of the Sudanese slave trade under the National Islamic Front and groups such as the Bakara and Rizagat. Slavery in the post-Gaddafi Libya. Since the beginning of the Libyan Civil War of 2011, that saw the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi's regime by NATO-backed anti-Gaddafi forces, Libya has been plagued by instability and migrants with little cash and no papers have become vulnerable. Libya is a major exit point for African migrants heading to Europe. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, published a report in April 2017 showing that many of the migrants from West Africa heading to Europe are sold as slaves after being detained by people smugglers or militia groups. African countries south of Libya were targeted for slave trading and transferred to Libyan slave markets instead. According to the victims, the price is higher for migrants with skills like painting and tiling. Slaves are often ransomed to their families, and in the meantime, until ransom can be tortured, forced to work, sometimes to death, and eventually executed or left to starve. Women are often raped and used as sex slaves and sold to brothels and private Libyan clients. Many child migrants also suffer from abuse and child rape in Libya. In 2017, CNN received a video of a slave auction in Libya. A human trafficker told Al Jazeera hundreds of migrants are bought and sold across the country every week. Migrants who have gone through Libyan detention centers have been severely abused, including electric shocks, burns, lashes, and even skinning. A Libyan group known as the Asma Boys have antagonized migrants from other parts of Africa from at least as early as 2000, destroying their property. Nigerian migrants in January 2018 gave accounts of abuses in detention centers, including being leased or sold as slaves. Videos of Sudanese migrants being burnt and whipped for ransom were released later on by their families on social media. In June 2018, the United Nations applied sanctions against 4 Libyans, including a Coast Guard commander, and 2 Eritreans for their criminal leadership of slave trade networks. The legacy of the trans-Saharan slave trade. The legacy of the trans-Saharan slave trade is still visible today. In places like Morocco, Tunisia, Sudan, and Mali, descendants of enslaved Africans form part of the cultural and ethnic mosaic. However, many of these communities still face discrimination and are often marginalized within their societies. Understanding this legacy is crucial, not only to confront the historical injustice, but to acknowledge the ongoing impact that the trans-Saharan slave trade has had on the cultural and social fabric of Africa and the Arab world. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's hidden stories.